Hi, in this video I will give an overview of clusters in LabVIEW, how you can use them and how you can use them within your application. So here the basics are on the front panel and in the controls palette under data containers. Here you find the cluster that you can use on your front panel and then later program in your block diagram. So basically a cluster is a container where you can add different controls, and then you can also include different data types within your cluster. So here I've created a cluster, and then inside this cluster I can drag in different types: numeric, boolean, string, path, etc. So basically this is the cluster, and inside the cluster you can have different objects. It could be of same type, it could be different types like this: a numeric, boolean, string, path, etc. In order to deal with the clusters within your program, you also have lots of cluster functions, and you find those on the block diagram. And when you right click and get the functions palette, then you select clusters, class and variant subfolder, and inside this palette you have different cluster functions that you can use, and the most used are unbundle by name, bundle by name, and then unbundle and bundle, and we will use those later in some basic applications. So here you see a basic cluster example. Assuming you have a cluster called person, and inside here you have different objects. One text box where you can enter your name. Here you have a enum where you can select your gender, male, female. Here you have a numeric control where you can enter your age. Here it's a boolean where you can select if you have a car or not. And assuming you want to insert a picture of yourself, an image, then you can use a file path like this, where you find an image on your hard drive and then enter the file path here. Also, you could have a text box for company name, etc. So this is just a basic example how you can create and use a cluster on this information. Typically you want to save this information in a text file, you want to save it in a database, or the opposite way, you want to, assuming you have some data information in a database that you want to present in your graphical user interface, then typically a cluster is a good way to structure that kind of information. So in order to get specific information from the cluster, you typically need to use the unbundle and unbundle by name functions. So here in this example you have this cluster where you have the name, gender, age, etc. And then typically, let's say if you only want to have the name or only the age or the company name, etc., then you can use the unbundle function. And in addition to the unbundle function, you have also what you call unbundle by name. So here you can specify which item you want to retrieve inside the cluster by specifying name, gender, age, etc., which is the same name as you have entered here in the cluster. So let's see how we can use this unbundle function and the unbundle by name function in your LabVIEW application. So now I have opened my LabVIEW programming environment. Here I have the front panel where I create the graphical user interface, and here I have the block diagram where I actually create my code. So let's start with the front panel. Then I just right click here, and then under data containers I have this cluster. So then by default it's just an empty cluster, so then I can just drag in a corner, and now I need to put in the different controls I need to put into the cluster. So then I just right click here, I can create a numeric, so assuming this is the age, I can have a string control where I want to have the name. I can make it a little bit bigger like this, so drag in the corner here. I want to select the gender, so then I can use an enum, I call it gender. Then typically here I want to select male or female, then I can just right click, add sorry, I can just start by entering mail. So far I can just select mail, and then I just right click, add item after, and then type female like this. So now I can select between male and female. So I have age. On the cluster I was showing earlier, I also have a boolean for if you have a car or not. Car questions mark, and then I say yes or no. And let's have you can put in an image or a picture of yourself. Then I can use this file path. Can make it a little bit bigger like this, and then just change it to image. And then finally I want to have a field for the company name. So then I select a string control and call it company name like this. And I can make it a little bit bigger. So basically now I created a basic cluster, and then you see a cluster contains of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different elements, but here on the block diagram it's only one element. So this is a good way to structure lots of information and put many different types inside one cluster, and then it's easy to handle it here in your block diagram. So before you start creating your code or your application, typically you want to select the proper order for your cluster. So then I just select the cluster, right click, and then select reorder controls in the cluster. Then I can select order. So this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then click OK. Click on this button. And then, assuming I'm running my program now, so then now I can tab through the different controls in the specific order I have specified. So first this one, then it goes to this one, to age, have a car, image, company, etc. Then this is done by specifying this cluster order. Now let's use these unbundle functions. So let's start by using the ordinary unbundle. So then here on the block diagram, I just right click, go to this cluster palette and select the unbundle function, which is here. I can just also show the visible items label, and then I can basically wire the cluster to this unbundle like this, and then automatically the different items appear. So then, but it's since I'm using the unbundle, I'm not to unbundle my name. I only see the data type, and I have to hold my mouse over to see the actual values. So the first one is name, then this is gender, age, have a car, image, and company name. So now let's assume I only want to do something with the company name here. So then I have, let's start by entering some data here, and male, age 52, I have a car, and then my picture, something like this, company, USN. So now I'm assuming I only want to pick out my name and put it inside this text box. So I can change this to an indicator. Then I just wire it to this unbundle and select the proper name and wire it like this. And when I run it now, I'm able to pick up this specific information as part of my cluster and put it into this new text box indicator. Assuming I want to have this one, change it to an indicator. I wire it like this. And the same I can do for the others as well. So basically, this is how you create a basic cluster and using this unbundle functionality. So let's change this unbundle and use this unbundle by name instead. Then I just right click, select unbundle by name, and then I wire this one to the cluster like this. You see the different items pops up with their respective name. So then I have name, gender, avatar, image, company name, etc. So this is unbundled by name. So then when I select a name, then I can just wire it to this one, and then it will pop up here. So I can remove it, and then it will pop up here. Now I have not wired this one, so assuming I changed my gender to female, and you see this is not updated because it's not wired. If I change my name and run it, then this will be updated because it's wired like this. But let's also wire the gender. Then I just drag here to find the next part of the cluster, and then I can select gender, age, etc. And in this case I want to select gender, wire it like this, and now you see this will be updated. I can change it back to male, run it, and then it's updated. And I can do the same for others. I can change this one to company, and then drag this down, find the proper type, company name, and then just wire it like this, run it, and then you see it's the name in my company here will be put into this text box. So this is how you use the unbundle and unbundle by name. And so far we have used the unbundle and unbundle by name, so let's do the opposite, namely bundle and bundle by name. So then I just remove some part of the code here, and now we have to do the opposite. Assuming I have those here, and then put the cluster here on the right side, and I have these on the left side, like this. And now I changed this to controls, and now I changed the cluster from a control, just click on the border, to an indicator, like this. So now I want to do the opposite. So assuming all these are empty, like this. Now the name I have specified here, I want to put that into this cluster here, and the gender I have specified here, I want to put it there, and the company name I have put here, I want to put it here. Then I use this bundle, like this, and then I just wire this one to this one. So now I have name, gender, and company. Let's find the other also. So I just do like this. I also copy this one, and image like this. I change those to controls, like this, and type some information here. 52, I have a car, my image.png, company, etc. And now I can wire those here in the same order, because when I use the bundle I have to put it in the same order. So this first one is name, then gender, check it here, then age, then have car, which is here, and then image, which I have here, and then finally the company. So I just make it a bit neater, doing these features like this. Now I can wire them like this. Then I just drag it like this, And now I can wire the output to the cluster like this. And now I can run the application. And then you see this text box has been copied into the cluster here. The gender, age, have a car, image, and company. I can change some information here. 52, my image, 2, USN, 2, female, etc. And then you see the cluster with the contents has been updated with these new values. So now I have used this bundle. So let's see how we can use this bundle by name. So then I just remove this bundle and these bad wires. Click Ctrl B. And now I find this bundle by name instead. And by default these are empty. So here on the input cluster I need to specify what kind of cluster I want to use. So then I have the cluster here. Then basically I can just right click here, create a local variable and change this to change to read, and then I just wire this one to the input cluster like this. So then you basically, this is just the template showing the contents of the cluster. So then I can select here name, gender, age, our car, image, and then company name, and then just remove the last one like this. And then the output is wired to the cluster, and then I can just easily wire the correct one, because name is name, like this, gender, age, our car, image, and finally company name. And let's just start by deleting some values here. And then just click run. And then you see these values has been put in the correct place inside the cluster. Of course I can do something wrong here if I want to. I can put the name into the company name instead, and then the name to the company like this, and then of course I'll get the company name inside the name, and then I will get my name into the company name. So let's just turn it back. But I can also change it here. I can select the different order here, so I can select that this should be the company name, and then I can wire like this. And then here I can select the name, and then I can wire this one to this one, and then of course it will be correct. So basically this is how you use a cluster. You specify a cluster here on your front panel, and then put in the different objects that you want to be part of your cluster, and then you use these different functions that you use to manipulate with clusters. So you have unbundle by name, bundle by name, unbundle, unbundle. So these are the four most used functions that you use in combination with clusters. So basically clusters are a nice feature in LabVIEW that you can use in your LabVIEW application. Here is another example of how to use clusters in your application using the so-called error clusters, which you find in the same palette, the data containers palette. Here you have error in and error out cluster. And these error clusters, error in and error out, are used by most of the built-in functions in LabVIEW. So here you see a basic example. In this basic example, I'm just have a file path, and then I select the proper path and run the application. I want to present the text within the file here in this text indicator. And then if you have some errors in the different functions, here you have a built-in function called open file. Here you have read from text file and then close file. And then you see how I have wired this error cluster as an input, and if there are any error inside this function, the error will be wired to the next function, And so you have on each functions you have other in and other out that you wire like this. So this is a good way to program. In that way you will get and see where the error are in your application, and you can do some proper error handling and easily figure out in which function the error are located, and you can do any kind of logic on these error clusters. Let's show how you can make this basic example. So let's start by creating a basic notepad file, so a basic text document. My file or whatever .txt, and just open it in Notepad, and then I just enter some text there. This is my file, hello world or something. So this is the text file I want to open in my LabVIEW application. So then I start by specifying this file path. Then since I have the file here, I just copy C colon temp slash, the name was my file .txt, like this. So now I want to open this text file in my LabVIEW application, and then I use the files here in the file IO. I use this one to open the file, this one to read the file, and finally this one to close the file. And now I want to use these error clusters. So then I go back to the front panel, right click here, data containers, and here I have the error in arrow cluster, and then here I have the arrow out arrow cluster. So then this is my application, and then I need to wire this arrow cluster through these different functions. So this is the open function, this is the read function, and this is the close function. I start with the file path, and I can click Ctrl H, so then I will see the input and outputs on the different VIs. So then this file path goes here, and then in the bottom on the left side I have this arrow in, which I wire to this one, and the output on this one is arrow out, which I wire to the input arrow in here, and the next function, and finally arrow out goes to arrow in to this close VI, and finally the arrow out goes to this one, the arrow out cluster, which I have here. And now let's create a basic string indicator to show the text inside the file. So then just type text or something, and then this one should be wired to the text here. So now in addition I have to wire also the ref num out to the ref num in, sorry, so the ref num out goes to ref num in, and ref num out goes to ref num in, like this. So then this is the basic application that should open this text file, sorry, yeah, this one, open this one. Let's see if it's working or not. Yeah, and then the text from the file has been put here, and so far there was no error in the code, but assuming I have some error here on the arrow in cluster, and then when I run my application now I will get no text here, because when this one is arrow in, then this will not be executed, and when you have an error here, this will not be executed, and this will not be executed. But I put it back to no error, run it, and then it's like this. Assuming I have entered our wrong file name here, my file 2 or something. Let's see what's happening now. No, I get an error on error out because this file do not exist. And if I do this, put these probes here, like this, and run it, and then you see on the inside here there's no error, but when it tries to open this file that do not exist, it gives an error on outside. And then since it doesn't find the error, find the file, it's no need to read the file because the file doesn't exist, and then it gets an error inside here, and the code within this file will not be executed. And the same for this one. So this is a standard way to use error clusters as part of your programming technique like this. So in this basic example, we use some of the existing functions that is part of LabVIEW, and as mentioned, these have built-in features for error in and error out. So let's see how we can create our own SubVI that has this error in and error out feature. So then let's just create a new VI here in LabVIEW. I go to File, New VI, and then I have the front panel and the block diagram. So let's just create a very basic SubVI where I'm going to calculate using a basic formula. So then, assuming I have an input value and an output value, so this could be x and this could be y, and then assume I just want to calculate according to a basic formula like this. I want to multiply the input with 5 or something, and then I want to add a number like 3 or whatever. So here I have created a basic formula. It's a basic linear formula like this. So let's just try the application. So then if the input are 4, the output will be 23 according to this formula. And the next step then is to create an error in cluster and an error out cluster like this. So now typically I only want to calculate this formula when there are no error in on the input. Then I can, here on my block diagram, I can put this calculation inside a case structure. I only want to calculate this one when there are no error inside here, so then this should not be true, but it should be false. So then I just right click here and make this case false, and then I wire the error in cluster to this question mark, and then you see automatically the case has been changed to no error and error. So then, as mentioned, this should only be calculated when there are no errors, so then I need to change it, make this case no error. So now, when there are no error here on the input, then I should calculate this formula, and when there are some error, I shouldn't calculate anything. Then basically I can wire like this. And let's make a SubVI of this basic example. And then I just select the proper inputs here. Here on this, I right click here, select pattern. So we have 2 inputs and 2 outputs, and then I select this pattern. So the input here, the arrow cluster in here, and the output here, and the arrow out cluster here, like this. I can save it. I just save it to a temporary folder. Temp my formula or whatever I can call it. So then I have my application here, or my SubVI. Let's create a new application where we are using this SubVI. So then I just drag it in. I can also start by creating a simple icon. I just double click on it in order to open the icon editor. I make a simple icon, y equals to ax plus b or something. Change the size like this, and then I can just drag it in here and use that SubVI in another application. So also here I create the arrow in and the arrow out cluster like this, and also input, I can call it X, and then output, I can call it Y, or I can call it other names, like this. So now I wire these inputs and outputs according to the inputs and outputs on the SubVI. So the input is this one, and this is the arrow in, which I wire here. And then we have the output, and then arrow out, like this. So now, when I run it now, and I type x equals to 5 or something, then it calculates the proper value, y, according to this formula. But assuming there are some error on the in, or error in my application, and then I don't want to calculate this formula, so let's run it now. Then you see it doesn't calculate any value here, it just puts 0. While I remove this error, then it calculates according to the formula. When there are some error in, it doesn't calculate anything, and then this is because I have wired the arrow cluster on a case structure, and then I can select between no error, and then I do something in the no error case, and then I can do something else in the error part, like this. And this is how you use the error clusters, the arrow in and the arrow out, as part of your application.